Rohit Saxena, who's going to tell us the current updated guidelines of optic neuritis. On to you, Dr. Rohit.
Thank you, Dr. Chitra, for the opportunity. Is my screen visible?
Yes, yes.
So thank you. And I'll be talking about the basic guidelines of optic neuritis. Currently what we are looking at. So we know that optic neuritis is inflammation of the optic nerve and can present as papillitis or retrobulbar neuritis. Rarely you can see associated neuroretinitis, but that is not really considered or you don't see it in a demyelinating optic neuritis. So we'll stick to essentially what we look in a demyelinating or a potentially demyelinating optic neuritis, which would essentially typically mean it's presenting as uniocular, affecting between 20 to 45 to 50 years of age, usually will have some pain loss, some pain along with the visual loss. And visual loss is usually acute in a sense over hours to days. It's not so sudden like an ischemia that it's immediate, but it's over hours to days with mild pain, especially on eye movement. The vision loss peaks by 2 weeks, and by 3rd week, you should start seeing some improvement. Presence of RAPD in a unilateral case and the fundus appearance as discussed. Typical optic neuritis is usually demyelinating, which would mean multiple sclerosis as your most common diagnosis, but other atypical features can be there, which may make you think in terms of infectious or para-infectious. If it's typical, it's most likely to be due to multiple sclerosis, but that does not mean that other causes can be excluded. Atypical optic neuritis would basically mean very sudden loss, painless loss, older or very young age, bilateral involvement, very severe disc edema, or the vision loss continues to progress with no improvement beyond 2 to 3 weeks. This essentially means that there is a lower risk of multiple sclerosis or a demyelinating cause, and you must think of infective, compressive, or vascular causes. So typical optic neuritis, think isolated, idiopathic, or multiple sclerosis related. Atypical, think of other causes like NMO, spectrum disorder, which may be acuporin 4, MOG, autoimmune, cryon, or post-vaccination. The diagnosis essentially is clinical based on the vision loss, fundus appearance, presence of RAPD, field loss, and an increased latency on VP and OCT, which is now increasingly being done to understand how it is progressing. Essentially, like I said, nothing is required for diagnosis, but we usually do a chest X-ray and electrolytes so that we can start the steroids without any major risk of side effects. In atypical cases, always rule out infective or inflammatory etiology. So MRI is the single most important investigation we now advise and should ideally be done in all patients, but it becomes extremely essential in atypical cases, recurrent cases, patients keen to know about their risk of multiple sclerosis, and in children. The MRI should be done with contrast and ideally should be a T2 weighted with flare and contrast. If the MRI brain is normal or there are any other neurological symptoms or you're suspecting NMO, the spine also may be required to be imaged. So MRI is the strongest predictor for development of multiple sclerosis, and it has been seen that first presentation of optic neuritis has a higher chance of developing multiple sclerosis if there is even one single lesion on the brain MRI. The treatment of acute optic neuritis is IV methylprednisolone, 1 gram over 3 days, although initially we were also giving dexamethasone as an alternative because of its lower cost and a little lower side effects. But now ease and availability of methylprednisolone, essentially we are giving methylprednisolone. If you suspect that it is NMO or atypical, you may even give it for up to 5 days. With a discussion with a neurologist, long-term disease-modifying agents can be planned, especially if there is a risk of the patient developing multiple sclerosis due to significant MRI lesions, or if there is a preceding history of neurological symptoms that may be suggestive of multiple sclerosis. In India, we found a higher incidence of papillitis, bilaterality, and a lot of atypical features. And over time, we have realized that a large number, up to 10% of our patients, may be because of NMO. And NMO disorder or NMO spectrum disorder is a very important condition where our intervention has to be very aggressive. It is because of an antibody-mediated disorder or antibodies acting on the CNS that are responsible for a very severe vision loss, along with spine involvement. Again, an MRI of the brain may be suggestive, and the enhancement of the involvement of the optic nerves and the midbrain region may be suggestive of NMO, but ideally you need to get a blood test of NMO and MOG so that you are able to identify the disease early and treat accordingly. Acute NMO is given IV methylprednisolone, but if it does not improve, a plasma exchange may be planned along with a neurologist, and a long-term immunosuppressive therapy is required, and not disease-modifying agents like in MS, which may actually increase the recurrences. MOG is the other syndrome that we are seeing frequently associated in our patients, presents with a little more benign form compared to NMO, but has much higher rate of recurrences. So these are the gross MRI changes. You can see unilateral involvement in MS, but chiasmal and bilateral or perineural involvement in MOG. And these changes can help us to early pick up the difference between the two. This was the way enhancement or involvement of the optic nerve occurs. So classically, typical optic neuritis, IV methylprednisolone improves follow-up. No improvement or steroid dependence, think of atypical features, work up better, get tested for NMO, MOG, MRI spine, and then tailor the management as per the requirement. You may require long-term management in the form of interferons or disease-modifying agents in optic neuritis and immunosuppressors in NMO, MOG. So work up better and manage appropriately. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Dr. Sujata Guha is there? Okay, she's not there. Dr. Ashwin?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Is it possible that there could be a situation where you're not going to treat, no treatment is still an option for optic neuritis?
It used to be when this NMO and MOG was not in the picture, the typical optic neuritis observation was one of the accepted mode of treatment. But now with emergence of NMO, and as Rohit suggested that in India, we have a higher incidence of it. In fact, within a couple of days, ideally steroids should be started in these patients, because if you start steroids early and if you start with the anti-disease modifying, the anti-inflammatory long-term agents, then you are actually preventing paraplegia in these patients. So observation is an option if you're very sure that you're not dealing with NMO or NMO spectrum.
If both are not there and the patient is pregnant, pregnancy moments, would you, and you know both both the NMO and MOG is not there. It's just an isolated optic neuritis on MRI, and the patient is in the pregnant, then would you watch these patients or no, you would treat them?
You know, sometimes when the patient presents a little late and we find that the vision has already improved, say the vision has started low and has already improved, then we are pretty sure it's a typical optic neuritis once we have ruled out MOG and other things. And if there is a very high risk, like you said, the patient is pregnant, we can still watch if we are sure that it's a typical optic neuritis.